Hello, and welcome to Release Readiness Live. I'm Elna Miller, your Release Readiness champion. We are broadcasting from our home studios this week as we bring you some of the new features from the Summer 20 release. After our product managers give the highlights, we'll take some of your questions live and on the air. So we will be monitoring both the Release Readiness Trailblazers community as well as Twitter. So if you do have a question, please post it in one of those places. Use the hashtag Salesforce Live. And if you can ask the question earlier in the webcast, that would be really helpful. If we don't get your question live and on the air, don't worry, we will follow up with you within the next few days. All of our webcasts will be available for later viewing on the Salesforce Live website. Now, we may be talking about the roadmap or making some forward-looking statements. So please make sure that any purchasing decisions you make are based on currently available functionality. Now let's get started with Einstein Analytics, and we'll meet our product managers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ankita Dutta, and I'm a senior product manager with the Einstein Analytics team working on operational reports and dashboards. So welcome to Einstein Analytics Release Readiness Live. Today, I'm excited to show you some of the operational reports and dashboards feature enhancements that we've made for Summer 20 release. So let's get started. Today, I'm excited to show you some of the Einstein Analytics and operational reports and dashboard feature enhancements we've made in the Summer 20 release. All right, so now let's talk about operational reporting. And here is a list of the Summer 20 highlights. The first thing we're releasing is faster formatted report exports. The Lightning Report formatted export feature is CPU intensive in its operation, and it takes a long time to render and times out for very large reports. So with the enhancements we've made, the report exports are almost 60% faster. The next thing is report subscription attachments, and now you can subscribe to reports in formatted Excel or details-only CSV format. This feature is going beta with Summer 20 and is one of our top voted ideas. The next feature is data categories. So data categories are used in Salesforce Knowledge, Ideas, and Answers to help classify and find articles, questions, or ideas. We had this in Classic, but it's a lightning gap. And some of the examples of using data categories would be logical classification of articles, easy access to questions, and control of article and question visibility. And lastly, iPad support. So this is part of the Lex on iPad initiative in 226, and viewing reports and dashboards on iPad works now. The only limitation I would like to call out is that drag and drop is not supported if you're editing reports or dashboards on iPad. All right. So this is our UI for the report subscription attachment. As a business user or an analyst, you can subscribe to reports in the formatted Excel or details-only CSV format. And we will see a live demo for this shortly as well. And this is the UI for adding the new data category filter. So let's move on to the demos now. So first, let's talk about report subscription attachments. So I'm logged into my local environment and I'm on the setup menu. Under reports and dashboard settings, I can see this org pref that I need to check to opt into this feature. Now let's see how we subscribe to this report. I have a sample report open over here. This is my opportunities with products report. I can click the arrow and click on subscribe. I can choose the frequency at which I want to subscribe to the report and the time for it. And then once I click on Edit Attachment, I can select the type of attachment that I want to subscribe to. For the purpose of this demo, I've selected Formatted Export, and then I'm going to hit Save. You can choose to run the report as you or another person, and you can also add conditions to it. So you only get the subscription email when certain conditions are met. Since I've pre-subscribed to it, I'll hit Cancel and show you what the email looks like. So this is how my email would look. And once I click on it, I can see the XLSX attachment and download it. Now, the other type of report I can subscribe to is the details-only report. And for this, the default format is CSV, and I can choose the encoding I need as well. The rest of the functionality is the same. So again, if I go into my inbox, this is what the email looks like, and I can download the CSV attachment from here. Now keep in mind that this feature is in beta right now, and we are working on further enhancing the body of this email. All right, let's talk about data category filters now. So as I mentioned before, data categories are used in Salesforce Knowledge, Ideas, and Answers to help classify and find articles. So I'm in my Setup menu, and I've opened up the data category menu. And as you can see, it's a hierarchical representation of your data, and it's controlled by the system administrator. So here I've created a location data category under which I have Canada and USA, and San Francisco and Vancouver are subcategories within it. Now this is one of my knowledge articles, and I can tag data categories to a knowledge article. And over here, I've tagged this to San Francisco. Now here is one of my reports created using the knowledge CRT. I can go ahead and add a filter over here. And as you can see, there is a new option to add a category filter. So once you click on this, you can select location. And then let's select San Francisco and click on apply. Now let's go ahead and run this report. You will now see your knowledge report with the subset of the information where data category is San Francisco for the corresponding knowledge articles. So that's all for our demos. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Behzad.
Hi everyone, my name is Behzad Ritchie. I'm an Einstein Analytics product manager working with the experience track. I am very excited to be here with you today and talking to you and showing you some of the latest and greatest Einstein Analytics capabilities that are going to be available in the upcoming Summer 20 release. In Summer 20, we've made a ton of improvements and added new features in many areas. Now, we won't have time to cover all of these, but I'm going to show you a demo of dynamic text in dashboards, data blending UI, and the enhanced watch list. We'll also quickly cover the new mobile app after the demos. So let's dive into some demos first. All right, so the first item that I want to demo is dynamic text in dashboards. In Summer 20, we've made it super easy to add data from your queries directly in your dashboard text widgets. This was previously only possible if you went into the code or the JSON for the dashboard and wrote your own bindings. But now you can easily do that with our new dynamic text UI, which gives you lots of flexibility in how you devise your text. So here I have a simple dashboard, and I want this text widget to say, for instance, there are currently 50 opportunities. So I'm going to enter there are. Then I'm going to click on Add Query Data. I'm going to select a query, and I want to choose Count of Opportunities. And from the field dropdown, I'm going to pick Count of Rows, and I'm going to hit Done. Next, I'm going to complete the sentence by adding opportunities at the end. Great. Now I can see the text displaying the number of opportunities to me in this natural language fashion. Now, how about if I wanted to display some information based on my selection on this chart? So that's really easy to do too. I'm going to modify the text to add total amount for the selected account is. I'm going to put my cursor between account and is, click on Add Query Data, select our query, choose account name, and this time I'm going to set the interaction type to selection instead of result, and hit Done. And finally, I'm going to add the amount here, select the query, choose sum of amount, selection, and Done. And now if I preview this dashboard, you'll see when I make a selection, the text widget shows the account name and the total amount like this. Great, so this was a quick demo of the upcoming dynamic text feature. Now let's move on to Explorer and talk about data blending UI. Now, perhaps the biggest highlight of Explorer is that data blending UI is now GA, so it will be available to all users without needing admins to turn it on. Data blending UI allows users to explore multiple data sets in a single visualization with just clicks and without requiring custom SACL. So here we have a new exploration for my sales data set. And what I want to do is to bring in my sales target data set as well. So I'm going to click on Add Dataset and add my other dataset. You'll notice that the measure pills here are now qualified by the dataset name. Let's change this to sum of sales. And now let's add another measure. And you'll notice that you can select measures from each dataset. And in this case, I want to display sum of target from the targets dataset. Next, let's add a grouping. With data blending, you typically want to add a grouping by each of the dataset. That's how co-grouping works. And these are usually common dimensions among the datasets, such as an ID field or date fields, etc. In this case, I'm going to select product category from both of these datasets. Now, one of the capabilities that's new in Summer 20 for data blending is support for formulas. To show you that, I'm going to switch to a compare table. And when I add a measure, you can see that we have this add formula option up here. So I'm going to select that. Let's call this column sales attainment, which is a simple formula of actual sales over target sales, in this case, A over B. Great. And lastly, another new capability in Summer 20 is that you can now add filters on date fields when exploring or building blended data. So that was blending UI in Summer 20. Next, let's talk about some enhancements for Watchlist. Now, if you recall, Watchlist was a new beta feature we introduced in the Spring 20 release. With Watchlist, you can keep track of your KPIs and important metrics from across all your dashboards all in one place, in addition to being able to visualize how these metrics change over time. Now, with the Summer 20 release, this feature remains beta, so it does require an admin to turn it on from settings. However, we have done a ton of work around this feature in Summer 20 in order to make it a fully fledged feature with all the key capabilities and requirements that's needed to take this feature GA. So first, let me show you how to add a metric to your watch list. Here, I'm looking at my analytics adoption dashboard in my demo org. And as an admin, my monthly active users number is something that I frequently check to measure adoption of analytics in my company. So I'm going to hover over this number to expose the drop-down menu. And I'm going to select Add to Watch List. I'll give this a name. Let's call it MAU for monthly active users. Now, here are a couple of new features which we've added in Summer 20. You can now define your change format to let the system know whether an increase in change is positive or negative. In this case, an increase in adoption is desirable, so we'll leave the default option. But let's say if you're tracking customer attrition or number of cases, then you would indicate that an increase in change is in fact negative or undesirable. We can also add a reference line. Say I wanted my monthly active users to reach 20. I'll set the value to 20 and type in goal for my label and hit save. Now let's go back to home and you can see that we have our watch list card here. And the watch list item we just added shows at the very top. We just added this item, so obviously no historical data to show just yet. One thing that's new with this card though is that now you can see the daily percentage change shown to you here. But where things get really exciting is in our new dedicated watch list page, which you can access from the left-hand navigation. Here you can view and analyze all your watch list metrics. You can see the current number. The timeline chart displays how the data has been changing over time. We even show you these period over period calculations down at the bottom here. And of course, you can quickly jump to the source dashboard by clicking on this link here on the top right-hand side. In addition, you're also able to change the order of your watch list items by clicking on this Change Order button down here. Also, you can now add up to 20 metrics to your watch list as opposed to the previous limit, which was 5. Another thing I want to mention here, you might notice that one of my metrics is showing this warning icon instead of the change percentage. So let's select this item to see what's going on. All right, so you can see that the warning is telling us that the query has changed. What that means is that since the time I added this metric to my watch list, the source query in the source dashboard has been modified in some way. So it's possible that what I'm tracking here may not be exactly the same as what's available in the source dashboard. This should be a rare occurrence since existing dashboard queries shouldn't change often, if at all. But we have now enhanced this feature to at least be able to detect this divergence and notify the user so they can take the appropriate action. If you're okay with this, you can click on Ignore. Otherwise, you may want to delete this item and re-add from the source dashboard with the updated query. Great, so that was the enhanced watchlist feature in summer 20. And lastly, we have some exciting updates coming to our mobile apps. The Einstein Analytics iOS app received a full UI UX update. There's a brand new home experience that matches more closely with what we provide you on desktop. So even though this is new on mobile, it shouldn't be an unfamiliar experience with any of our users. With that, the iPad app is also much more streamlined with the iPhone app experience, while supporting all the iPad-specific capabilities such as multitasking and split screen support. We've also added the Watchlist feature to mobile, which is really a fantastic capability to have on the go. It's very similar to, say, your Stocks app that you may have on your phone, giving you easy and quick access to your important business metrics. Pivot tables are now fully supported on the iOS mobile app as well. And last but not least, we've made some performance improvements to speed up those dashboard load times. One very important update to mention for Android is that in the Summer 20 release, we're bringing Einstein Analytics to the Android Salesforce mobile app. So now you're going to get a really great native and mobile-friendly experience when accessing your embedded dashboards within Salesforce Mobile, as well as just being able to have ad hoc access to all of your Einstein Analytics apps and dashboards in the Android Salesforce app. That was my quick update on the experience track. I hope you're all excited to get your hands on these fantastic features and enhancements. All right, great. Well, that's it for me. Bobby, I pass it to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bobby with the Einstein Discovery team, coming to you from my house. I'm excited to share with you all of the cool features we're doing in Einstein Discovery with the Summer 20 release. The Einstein Discovery team has not slowed down delivering some amazing features in Summer 20 that enable customers to easily unlock the power of machine learning through point and click. I'm excited to announce that tree-based models are now generally available. Prior to the Summer 20 release, Einstein Discovery would build generalized linear models in order to predict outcomes such as likelihood for an account to churn or opportunity time to close. However, depending on your historical data, tree-based models such as gradient boosting machines, or GBM, or extreme gradient boosting, XGBoost, may provide more accurate predictions. If you're like me and you're not sure which model will best fit your data, simply select Automatic in the algorithm picker and let Einstein Discovery run a model tournament and select the best one for you. However, note that running the model tournament may take some additional time. Are you concerned about introducing bias into your predictive models? Einstein Discovery has reimagined this experience in the Summer 20 release. Rather than marking fields as protected fields as you would have in the Spring 20 release, users will now mark a field as sensitive when setting up or editing a story. Sensitive fields are fields in your historical data which may contain sensitive data such as age, race, gender, or income. By marking a field as sensitive, Einstein Discovery will show you, through an improved visual experience, all the fields which may be acting as proxies, as well as highlight disparate impact, where one group may be favored disproportionately over another. Unlike protected fields in the prior release, sensitive fields will remain in your predictive model unless you choose to exclude them. Now let's look at a demo that highlights some other great Summer 20 features. Let's say 6 months ago you deployed your first Einstein Discovery predictive model which analyzed your historical quote data, looking for the key drivers in reducing the quote's discount. You can see from Model Manager
that the discount predictions are getting further away from the actual discount. Let's drill into the story. Since we keep the historical quote dataset up to date, I've already refreshed my story with the latest data as a new version. Starting in summer 20, you can see how data has changed from one version of a story to the next. You can see how many rows of data were analyzed as well as the average outcome and how that's changed since the previous version. I can see that the average actual discount has decreased, which is exactly what I wanted. But I can also see how the average discount has changed for each data segment. Here we are comparing version 2 to version 1, but we can compare to any story version. I can see if there's any changes regarding which fields are driving the discount. Additionally, I can look at all the segments of my data to see where the average discount may be higher or lower. In this case, it looks like the actual discounts are lower across the board. If I go into model metrics, I can see that the new GBM model type was used for this model. I like what I see here, and I'm now ready to refresh the recommended discount predictive model. Starting in summer 20, I can deploy a new version of a model which is already live in production. To do that, I simply choose the radio button to add or replace a model in an existing prediction. Choose the prediction definition, click Replace, and choose the model to refresh. Once the model is updated, I want to rescore all the records. Starting in summer 20, I can bulk score existing Salesforce records to keep them up to date with the latest predictive model. I can score all records that haven't reached a terminal state, which is defined in the prediction settings, or I can choose a subset of records to score. I can monitor the progress of the scoring job from this page. Bulk scoring jobs may only run one at a time. If a scoring job's in progress, another scoring job cannot be set at this time. Once the bulk scoring is complete, I'm confident that my business users are consuming the most up-to-date predictions. Now I'm going to show you how you can use the new sensitive fields functionality to understand and avoid bias in your predictive models. Here I'm looking at some employee historical data, and I want to understand what's driving employees getting promoted. I can click Create Story, maximize the variable Was Promoted True. Next, I can choose a complete insights and prediction story, and in order to choose the sensitive fields, I will need to use manual mode. First thing I want to do is only analyze data where the employee has been at the company for at least 3 years. I can click on the years at company and change the minimum value to 3. So I exclude all employees who are newer and may not have had enough time to get promoted. After applying this data filter, my correlations are no longer relevant. Starting in summer 20 release, I can now recalculate the correlations to see which fields are most related to the outcome after filtering out some data. Now I can tell Einstein Discovery about my sensitive fields. To do that, I simply need to click into that field and check the box that this variable contains sensitive data. Before I create my story, I can now choose the predictive model used. Starting in summer 20, I will see the new algorithm picker, which I can select a specific model type. But I'm going to use automatic because I'm not sure which model will be best. Also, I can now use inline edit to change the story name. Once the story is completed, I will see insights only for my sensitive fields. To see all insights, I can click this dropdown and choose All Insights. Sensitive field insights will show details about potential bias through proxy fields, or details about one group being favored over the others.
All right, that's it for me. Tim?
Thank you, Bobby. Hi, my name is Tim Bizaud, and I'm a product manager with the Einstein Analytics data platform. And I'm thrilled that today I can share some phenomenal updates with you for the Summer 20 release. Let's take a look at the beta of our next generation data prep tool that's coming your way this summer. The latest version of data prep, called Data Prep Beta, expands on the intuitive visual interface that allows you to easily point and click your way to build recipes. It replaces the current data prep editor. Let's start with an old recipe and upgrade it to the next generation data prep editor. After the recipe is upgraded, we can use the new graphical view of the recipe in data prep beta to see at a glance where data comes from and how it flows through the recipe to the target. Here, we have Netflix titles that are being enriched by viewer ratings. By the way, if you need to include data from Salesforce, I have full access to the entire Salesforce object model via my org in the input node. I can inspect my data in real time using the data preview. To add related columns of data to each row, the join node performs a lookup using the show ID key. To clean up and further enrich the data, we can use transformations. Let's start by opening this transform node. Let's take a look at the different transformations that are available in the transform node. For instance, I can easily create formulas and rename columns. I can always inspect all of the fields and interact with the preview. This allows you to validate the recipe as you build it. You can continue to preview how raw data is transformed at each step of the way. Because data prep runs on the next generation data platform, users can easily leverage machine learning transformations. For example, users can predict sentiment of text in a free-form text field. Also, users can predict missing values using the Predict Missing Values transformation. Notice how each added transformation appears as a step on the left. Using the plus button, I can inject nodes onto the existing graph. Data prep comes with the ability to stack together rows of data from different sources using the append node and roll up data using the aggregate node. For example, I can add a filter node to reduce the set of rows in my dataset. Finally, I'll add an output node to write the resulting data to a dataset. However, notice that I can also use the new output option to write this data externally to AWS S3 or Snowflake. We have been working with our new partner Snowflake to generate an output connector to Snowflake Beta that will allow you to leverage our powerful data platform to combine and augment data from Salesforce and send it to Snowflake, where you might have a data lake. Okay, we're all done here. I can now save and run this recipe. Personally, I am super excited to see this project come to life. Check it out and share your feedback using the feedback button at the top of the editor screen. And last but not least, I'm handing things off to Chris.
Thanks, Tim. I'm Chris Ames, a product manager on the data platform team focused on connectivity, where my team enables features supporting importing data into Einstein Analytics from Salesforce, as well as external sources. And now in this release, we're also delivering output capabilities from analytics. I'm very excited to show you some of these new key features that we've delivered this release, so let's dive in.
In the prior release, we added filtering for several other connectors, and now we've included Google BigQuery into the list of filterable connectors. This will be a gain on efficiency and allow you to decrease your load times. So here's the data set, previously loaded, and as you can see, it has EU data in it. Perhaps we don't require EU data for our analysis. Well, the process for eliminating the data is a whole lot easier. You add a simple SQL where clause for the object and pre-filter those rows out. So here we see the filtered load is actually 2,500 instead of 26,000 rows, a 90% reduction. Another feature, split scheduling, provides a simple means for scheduling your Salesforce local data sync in multiple buckets. This was actually delivered last release, but we really felt the need to make sure that it was visible in this release as well. Setting up a new connection is done in the same manner as setting up external connections today. Connect to data, add a connection, Salesforce connector. No credentials needed, just give it a meaningful name. For this exercise, let's call the connections daily and hourly. Now it's quite simple. Just move the object from SFTC local to the default connection to your newly created ones. Okay, we have that set. Let's go ahead and get the scheduling set for these connections. SFTC local will be our weekly. we'll have our daily running at midnight, and then our hourly to run at the top of the hour. There we have it, running smooth as a clock and only running what is needed when it is needed. Okay, now the biggest feature my team has been working on is an output connector to allow you to push data into Snowflake database. Definitely a game changer. This is a beta feature, so connect with your account exec to be included in the beta program. Similar to a read connection, you need to start by generating the connection to the database for reference later. This feature is tied to the data prep capabilities Tim told us about earlier. We'll need to go to Data Flows and Recipes, select Recipes, and select the dropdown for Beta Data Prep. We will start with our source and create a recipe with a transform and a filter, and then drop an output connection node. Configuring the node by selecting the connection and the object, we've added some intelligent matching, but you can also overwrite it manually. All right, let's save the recipe. And it's ready to run. And with the magic of video editing, we see it's done already. Now we see the data in Snowflake. Well, what do we want to do with it from here? Well, maybe we also have an enterprise dashboarding strategy that includes Tableau. So now your Einstein Analytics and Tableau visualizations can easily leverage the same manicured data set, allowing you to maintain a single source of the truth and consistent analysis. Thank you.
And with that, that wraps it up for Einstein Analytics. Back over to you, Elna.
And you know what? Most of the questions we get, or a lot of questions we get, are on the roadmap. So we're just going to head those off by just starting with some roadmap. So I'm going to put up a quick slide and let our team speak to the roadmap. So once you can see my screen, just go ahead and dive in, each of you.
Great. So let's talk about our roadmap highlights. So let's start with operational analytics, and we have some very new cool features coming up. A few of them that I'd like to call out are auto add new fields to CRTs. So we know that this has been an issue for orgs with a lot of CRTs where they manually add fields. And this will be similar to what a SRT does with some cool enhancements. The next thing, as I mentioned during the demo, is that we will make report subscription attachment GA with a better email body. Next up, we have autonomous insights.
Awesome. Thanks, Ankita. Yes, so on the experience track, we have some really exciting capabilities and roadmap items that we're working on. Perhaps the most exciting one is autonomous insights. We want to be able to provide self-service autonomous analytics to a range of different types of users, to from data scientists, your analysts, to just your power users and business users. We want to enable them to be able to ask any question really from their data in the natural language format and get answers and discover insights that way. So we're really excited about that. Also, we're thinking about Tableau and how we could integrate with Tableau and do some things around maps. We're also working on mobile offline. That's something that's in our roadmap, and we have a lot of customers that ask about be able to access their data out in the field when they may not have access to internet connectivity. And lastly, killer tables. We're going to continue to make improvements to our tables, both on desktop and the mobile platform. So we have some exciting updates coming to tables as well. And last but not least, coming up in our roadmap is reusable dashboard components that I know some of you out there, especially those who build dashboards, are really excited about that. And yeah, that's it for Experience Track. Tim?
Yeah, on the data platform, you've seen the amazing preview of what's currently in open beta for the next generation data prep platform that is unifying not only our existing data prep tooling, but also will allow you in the future to upgrade your data flows into data prep so that you can get the benefit of our next generation data platform that allows you to quickly clean your data using machine learning and take advantage of the other smart transformations like sentiment detection. And then we're also looking at offering clustering in the future. So it's a really exciting roadmap for this data platform. Speaking of aligning with Tableau, Behzad, as you're saying, we're working on supporting SQL. So on one hand, we want to make it easier for new users to learn Einstein Analytics, and analysts often have existing SQL knowledge. But also we want to give our Tableau users the ability to leverage the Einstein Analytics query engine and take advantage of the huge scale that data sets provide to us. And speaking of that, we're going to enhance our scale from 2 billion rows per data set up to 10 billion rows of data per single data set. So there's amazing scale and progress on that side as well. And Chris, as you mentioned, all of us are super excited about our roadmap on the output connectors. That really opens up a whole set of new use cases for the data platform. So you're currently working on S3 and Snowflake, but obviously we're also keeping others in mind, and let us know which connectors you would like to see us to work on. Bobby?
Awesome. I'm really excited about that 10 billion row data set. I remember back when we called it Wave Analytics and it was a 100 million row data set, and we called that big. And man, this is huge. Okay, so for the intelligence track, we are broken down into 3 different areas that we're really focusing on. So Einstein Discovery, Intelligence. We've got trust and governance, where we're looking at, we always want to increase or improve upon our ethical AI. What we did in the summer release with the sensitive fields, there's a lot more that we can do, especially with guiding our users on how to, what to do with all that information. We showed you Model Manager, where I showed how one of the models was actually increasing the difference from the prediction from the actual. It was getting further away. We want to be able to notify users on that. We don't think that you should have to go to a monitoring page. We want you to be notified when it's actually time to refresh that model. From an enterprise scale perspective, we work with a lot of large enterprise that have data scientists. And there's always a question of, do we use Einstein Discovery models? Well, what happens about the models that we built ourselves? So coming in the winter release, hopefully as a pilot, we'll be able to support some customers' models that they've built. So we're really excited about that area. There's been a lot of customers we're working with that say, hey, I have this model, I want to just use this instead. More tree-based models. So random forest is another very popular modeling technique. It's a tree-based. So that's the next one we're looking to support. And then we want our predictions everywhere. I think the biggest value with Discovery is the end users that can consume these predictions. And we want those predictions to be embedded where they're working. So sometimes, they're working back in Salesforce. We optimize for this use case. That's what we have today. But users are in dashboards, not only just Einstein Analytics dashboards, but Tableau dashboards. So we're really excited to be building a integration with our Tableau counterparts on bringing the predictions directly to your Tableau data. So that's also coming. So really excited about what the future is bringing with Einstein Analytics.
Nice, thanks. So I'm sure that headed off a few of the questions that are on people's minds. So now we'll go into your questions out there. So let's start with a operational reports question from Hongda. Can you explain a little bit more about the enable enhanced folder sharing? Specifically, will the subfolder have different sharing rules from the root or parent folder? For example, let's say you want to share a subfolder to a public group, but not change the sharing on the parent or the root folder.
Yeah, sure. So I can take that. So sharing is actually still at the folder level and not at the subfolder level. Subfolders will still follow the root folder sharing rules. And now with enhanced folder sharing, users will need specific perms and folder level access in order to manage folders. And also legacy folder sharing is targeted to be retired in winter 21. So just an FYI.
So the way the folder sharing actually works isn't really changing. It's just the way that you grant access to modify the sharing that's changing,
Correct.
right? So it's more of a permissions change as opposed to that, to make it a little bit more, so give you more control over who you give to access to do what with respect to reports folders.
Right.
Right. And then this is from Christy, wants to know if the watch list will be available to display programmatically in a Lightning component, for example.
Yes, that's a great question. That won't be available just yet, but that is something that's in our roadmap, and we're thinking about ways of bringing Watchlist outside of just the analytics home and be able to embed it in Salesforce.
Thanks. Lexa wanted to know, is the data prep beta tool only replacing recipes? Are all capabilities of data flows still available in data prep? And will it eventually replace all the data prep tools?
That's a great one too. I mean, it is designed to rule all data flows and recipes eventually. So currently we allow you to upgrade your recipes, and with the GA, and that's a forward-looking statement, we plan to make the next generation data prep available as GA in the winter release. So all recipes will open up in this new editor. And then eventually, starting next year, we'll upgrade your data flows and have all of the cool features available that are currently featured in data flows, like for example, the lookup multi-value, the flattening capabilities. So that will all be in the next generation data prep. That's what we're focusing on right now.
Great, thanks. Abhishek wanted to know, when will we have the ability to add or embed Einstein discovery stories on EA dashboards? Is it on the roadmap?
Absolutely. This is top of mind for me. I think what we built with the Einstein Discovery Story is very specific to a certain persona, but our business users want it as well. So it's going to come in a couple forms. So the first thing we're doing, we actually have this today. You can use a data flow and predict, create a column with the prediction, and you can add that prediction to dashboards today. But what's missing is the predictive factors and the recommended improvements. How can you improve that prediction? So with the next generation data prep tool, we're going to have a prediction transformation. We're targeting the winter release for that. Very excited to be building that. And not only will you be able to include a column for the prediction, you'll also be able to include columns for the predictive factors as well as the improvements. So you can visualize those. It's a little bit, it's sort of some text that you'll have to figure out how to best show that, but that's one way you'll be able to add it in the near term. And then we want to just, we imagine a component that you can drag and drop on your dashboard that's just going to have the insight. So as you filter down on your dashboard, it's going to be as if you're filtering down on that discovery story to show you those insights. So we want to make that experience a lot more seamless, and not only in Einstein Analytics, but we want the same experience in Tableau as well.
Wow, that's exciting. It sounds like you're going to be busy for the next
it's fun.
3 releases or so. All right, I have a couple more questions about operational reports, and keep the questions coming because we do have about 10 minutes or so. We can take more questions. And as I said, we will follow up in the community if we don't get to it on the air. So if you don't get it in time, don't worry. Are there any limits on the file size for the scheduled report attachments?
So yes, there are. The file size should be less than 3 megabytes. So that's like 30 columns and 15,000 rows, basically.
Got it. And is there a plan to add PDF attachments to the subscription list?
Yeah, so good question. Because I know this is on the Idea Exchange, and folks are asking for PDF attachments as well.
Yeah.
Exactly, right. So we checked with the customers about their use cases, right, about PDF, PNG attachments. And what we realized is that it'll be actually more useful for dashboards, because a lot of the use cases were how they can use these dashboard snapshots in their presentations, basically. So doing this for a report didn't make as much sense as it would be like one long table. So as of now, we are going to concentrate on the dashboard attachment PDF first, and then we'll get to the report PDF attachment if there's still a use case for that.
Great, thank you. Now, what is the maximum number of data category groups on a knowledge report? Is it different from Classic?
No, it's actually the same as Classic. So it's like you can still create up to 3 category groups. You can have maximum of 5 levels of hierarchy in each group. And each category group can contain up to 100 categories.
Wow. So you can go crazy with those categories.
You can categorize a lot.
Now, sometimes we hear that reports in Lightning are slower than in Classic. And of course, we want to always give people good performance experience. So are there plans for improvements in performance? What's going on in that area?
Yeah, that's again another good question, and it's been asked a lot. Due to the various UI components, right, that we've added in Lightning, and then because it's way more interactive than Classic, we have noticed that the performance is slower in comparison to Classic. But I would like to point out that performance has been a journey for us, right? And we're considering it every release, and it's always been on our roadmap. So for example, in the last release in Spring 20, we released Disable Preview to offset the loading spree when you're loading a report, right? And you can add columns faster. We're right now looking at CDN enhancements coming up. So that way, if customers are on a slower network in some remote location, they'll be able to run their reports way faster. And then we're looking at other things such as async report builder, because we've heard performance concerns around that. So we'll keep working on that and keep prioritizing that on our roadmap. But as I said, it's going to be a journey, basically.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I use the turn off the preview a lot, especially when you're first building a report and you're tweaking it, and you don't want to have to sit there and wait for the preview to generate. So that's been really helpful for me. So thank you for that. I think the other big area really is the big reports. When people have a lot of data and they don't want to have to wait so long, and they're wondering, is the report ever gonna come up? So that probably to me would be the next biggest thing, aside from report builder performance, is the actual running, especially with the bigger reports. And there are ways to get it. It seems to run a little faster when you don't have the details. Sometimes, if you just show the summary.
Exactly.
Sometimes that can help. And there are a few things that you can do to tweak it in terms of how you're constructing the report. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you're doing on the back end as well. So thanks for that. Now this is for a couple questions for Behzad. I noticed that enhanced subscriptions listed as one of the new items is listed as one of the new items. Can you talk a little bit about what's been improved with subscriptions?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we have made some improvements in summer 20 for subscriptions and Einstein Analytics. So now you can actually subscribe to tables, which wasn't possible before. And when you do that, you will receive a CSV attachment with the email that you receive for the table. So that's new in summer 20. Also, now if you go to your subscription preview, you will actually have access to those drop downs for each widget, and you can take action. For instance, you can do share or explore directly from your subscription preview. And another thing that's new is now when you are trying to add something to your subscription, the UI will actually show the filters that are currently applied to that widget, so you know exactly the state of that query. And more importantly, when you get the email, you can actually click onto the widget to take you to the dashboard. So it will directly deep link you to the dashboard, and it will take the state of that widget to the dashboard. So the dashboard will already be filtered by the state of that widget at the time that you subscribe to it.
Oh, that's the filters. Displaying the filters is really useful, because sometimes you're
totally.
like, what? Why is there nothing here?
Right.
Or you don't see what you expect to see. So that's really useful reference. Now for Watchlist, what happens if the user no longer has access to the underlying data? Would they still be able to see the trended data up to the point that they lost access, or what happens exactly?
Okay, that's a great question. So if the user loses access to the underlying data or the data set, then they won't be able to see that watch list at all. So they'll receive an error message that essentially tells them that you don't have access to the data. And at that point, they can either delete that watch list item from their list, so they don't have to look at that error message, um, or they can reach out to the admin and restore their access to the data set. And if that happens, if they lose access and then after a certain period of time, they regain access to the data set, then they will lose that data in that period that they didn't have access. So their trend line might have some missing data during the period which they didn't have access to the data set, but then it will start trending the data as you would expect on a daily basis after that.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, if I've added the analytics tab to my Salesforce navigation and I can see that it shows up in Salesforce Mobile for iOS, but what about Android? Is that part of the Android update you mentioned, or what do I need to do to get this enabled for Android?
Yes, great mobile question. So yes, definitely. Currently today, the analytics tab isn't supported on Android. So you may notice it on your iPhone and iOS, but not on your Android when you're using the Salesforce app. But yes, as part of the update I mentioned, in August, we're going to start rolling this out and enabling Android on all the sandbox instances. And then about a month later, September or so, maybe end of September, we're going to enable all the production orgs. So then if you have the analytics tab added to your navigation, then you should see that in the Android mobile app as well. If you don't see it, just make sure you have the latest version of Salesforce Mobile installed from the Google Play Store. And then also just make sure from the app launcher within Salesforce app that you are looking at the right app. If it says mobile only in the app name, that means you're looking at the classic mobile experience and not the Lightning experience. And the Analytics tab is only available in the Lightning experience. So just need to switch to the Lightning app, and then you'll see all the same tabs that you see on desktop on your mobile device.
Right. Okay, so just a little patience and we'll have that. Right.
Yes, so there isn't much you need to do extra really. It's just have to wait a little bit and
okay.
It should be there.
So for Bobby, do you recommend updating all models to see if the new tree-based models will be better?
It's a good question. I think with tree-based models, we have a lot to learn about our customers and how they want to use it. I think what I would recommend is if you have a model out there and it's working, you're happy with it, I'd say there's no reason to update it just yet. But all models need to be updated after some time. They eventually fade out, and they've been helping your end users make some changes in the way that they sort of do business. So we expect all models to degrade, and you should be refreshing them. So on that, whatever refresh cadence you might have, we definitely encourage you to try it out.
Great. Now, can we use the new bulk score feature for our predictions that use the old Einstein Discovery write-back managed package?
That's an excellent question. So a lot of our trailblazers out there wanted predictions before we had this automated way to get predictions into your Salesforce record. So we built a managed package. We have this API, and you were creating your own custom fields. And every time you either did a trigger, if you're one of our really earliest customers, or you're using Process Builder. So that actually uses a framework that is not supported by the bulk score. The bulk score requires that you're using we call it the no code predictions. We came out with it in the winter release last year. So you create a prediction field when you deploy the model, and we automatically write back that score when those records are updated and edited. So it's going to work for that. If you're still using the managed package, we continue to it's a managed package. Technically, Salesforce doesn't support it, but it is still it's going to work. It's going to continue to work. It's using a functionality that we're not getting rid of.
Okay. Tim, I got a couple for you. So first of all, what about some recipe-specific features like outer joins? Will they be available in the data flows?
So yes, for the joins feature, that is a feature that came in through the new data platform that we've built. And the way we're going to make them available is by allowing you to upgrade your data flows into Einstein Analytics Data Prep. And therefore, you get not just the familiar graph layout that you have in data flows, but also the preview and the interactivity during your development of that flow. So that's essentially how we provide these joint features to data flows by allowing our customers eventually to upgrade their data flows.
I see. Okay. And when can we clone some of the recipe flow pieces?
That's also a good question for developers. Eventually you want possibly to take a piece of a recipe graph and copy it over into a new recipe. And right now we allow you to duplicate your recipes and basically do a multi-select and then remove certain fields. But eventually we also want to make this clipboard capability available so that you can copy a couple of nodes into your clipboard and then paste them into a new recipe. So that will be a roadmap feature.
Okay, thank you. Next, I got a burning question for Chris. Chris, thanks for being patient, waiting for your questions. So we've been putting more and more data into Einstein Analytics. So let's a typical customer, they're really going to town and they're hitting limits, like the number of data sync objects is only 100. Are you going to address this? What are the plans?
Yes, limits. I mean, nobody wants limits, but we have to have them, right? So we continue to examine the limits and to look at how we can make sure that the limits are controlling the environment. We're in a multi-tenant environment, so we want to make sure that we adjust these limits as customers need them to be adjusted based on the available capacity that we have. So we're not hard and fast going to be able to go out and just up every single limit we have, particularly with objects, but as customers come across that, it's a dialogue we're open to having with them to make sure that they can leverage all this great functionality that the team's delivering. So at this point, it's sort of a discussion with us.
Now, for those folks who have a strategy for locking down their data, what is the Einstein Analytics team doing to support that? So if you're looking for like locking down your cloud data sources, you know, you want to make sure there's higher security.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, we have multiple customers that are using the external connectors, and they have more extensive security requirements. So we're examining concepts such as bring your own certificate to be able to secure that. Today we use the public certificates available on these cloud sources. And we see some customers going more towards a virtual private network or private center VPC mode. So we're looking to make sure that we can support that by adding those types of capabilities into the product. It's a little more technical, complicated area, but security always is by nature.
Right. So speaking of limits, John wanted to know, what is the max file size for importing into EA? Is it 30 columns and 15,000 rows? Not sure who's...
Jim, do you know the max? Is it?
Yeah, so we have a, I was just going to open up the limit help doc, but we have a limit of 5,000 fields per data set and 32,000 characters per field. And then there's an upload limit that you can push data in through the external data API of 50 gigabytes per day. So overall, that has been sufficient for pretty much all of our customers. It's been less than a handful of customers that actually reached our limits in that respect. So hopefully that is sufficient for.
I guess when you have a certain amount of data, you're going to end up doing it over the API most likely, right? It's the smaller amounts that would be directly imported. It's probably my guess.
Yes, correct. So you can either, when you're using an external ETL tool to push data in, or also our CSV uploads, they both have these high limits.
Right. So the limit, I think the limit John was talking about might have been the, you know, just the straight import using the UI as opposed to API.
Correct, and that's the 50 gigabytes for Einstein Analytics data sets, and that is even compressed data. Ankita, do you have anything on OA?
Yeah, so I heard 30 columns and 15,000 rows, and that's actually the scheduled report attachment limit. So I just wanted to clarify that. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, but he did ask specifically about EA, so maybe we got some limits crossed there. Okay, well, we are at the top of the hour. So I think at this time we're going to sign off, but we do want to invite everybody to join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, where we are going to be going into Service Cloud, and we have many more broadcasts during the course of the week. Check out the schedule in the Release Readiness community, and we'll see you there, where all Trailblazers meet to be release ready. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good day.